All right. All right. Thank you, Daniel. So we're going to go and get started here. I think we left off here with, we were on the slide that says, show Ms. Fall, at least check in. How do we do that? Talk about skills and tools to get that done. Oh, and everyone have a good lunch? Good. I thought we were on that slide that talked about our $100 gift certificates. That's all right. That's the last slide of the day. Yeah, yeah. All right. So we're gonna have a conversation. We gotta have a crucial conversation here, right? That's what they call it in some of the workspaces. Call it a conversation for resolution. And there's lots of ways to have this conversation. So certainly not saying this is the only way. This is a way. And I think some of you probably are good at this already. If you're not, then this is a way to do it. Hopefully it's helpful. So, but anyway, a very important step to set the parameters for the conversation. Yeah. Don't skip it. You got to have a crucial conversation. Don't skip setting the parameters. And so it might even help to write it down, right? To practice saying it. Tone is important. And so I recently had a young man in our in our congregation, who needed to have a pretty big conversation with someone. This is good. He called me up, was telling me about this conflict that he was having with one of his roommates. And I said, okay, great, and he'd already had someone involved in it. I said, okay, great. How can I help you? Because, I'm not just here for you to triangulate. How can I help you? Well, I just thought maybe you can help me. I thought maybe you could just kind of help me to, what do I do? I said, well, what do you feel like you can do? Well, I probably need to talk to him. So we walked all through, asked him a bunch of questions. And I said, well, we want to have that conversation. I said, so how are you going to have that conversation? He says, oh, I don't know. What should I do? I said, well, I think you should think about that, right? I think you should write it out. And if you want, you can call me back and you can kind of talk to me how you're going to have the conversation. Well, turns out he didn't call me back. No, he went ahead and had the conversation anyway. But he called me after he had the conversation. I said, well, how did it go? He goes, well, it didn't go good. I said, oh, I thought you were going to call me back. He said, yeah, that's right. So anyway, but I said, well, at least did you write it out? He goes, well, I took some notes. I wrote them down, and then it went haywire. I said, well, that's why it would have helped to, like I was going to be like the person, and you would get to tell me, and we're going to role play it. I think this is really important. I don't think we do this enough. I know that companies don't do this. We don't do this in the church. But there's a lot of power in role playing. Yeah. Hey, I got to have a crucial conversation with someone. Can you act as that person? Sure. Go. You know what I mean? And you give them a break. Don't be defensive, but try to really act the part and help them out. And so I think it's really helpful, and it can really help people to have really good conversations. Mm-hmm. If you're humble and you work it out, it may not go perfectly. It may go better than you thought. But boy, it's nice to practice. We practice everything else we're going to do. Mm-hmm. My kids are doing a skit next week. They've had about 5 or 6 or 7, 8 practices. And they review their skits and all those things. That's so they can stand up and do something way less important than a crucial conversation. Mm-hmm. That make sense? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I would just say take advantage of that. It'll be helpful. So set the stage, write it down, practice saying it, make sure you have the right tone, keep it simple, neutral, and respectful. Be supportive. Remember the golden rule, or the platinum rule, do unto others as they would have you do, okay? Mm-hmm. Ask for feedback from a neutral party. Guard privacy. When applicable, don't use names. Sometimes, you're in a small group, I know you know who I'm talking. They may know who you're talking about, but you still don't use their name. I got to have a conversation with someone. You go, I know who that is. You may know, but I'm not going to tell you. Let's just, let's practice it, right? It's really good. And then ask for feedback. And here's a great way to start. I want to talk to you because I value our relationship. This is very important. I value your relationship with God. You're not trying to butter them up, but you really do value. If you're having this talk, look, if you care enough to be in conflict with them, okay, all right, you care about them. You may be mad as all get out, but you know what? You don't get mad with people you don't care about. You know what I'm saying? Like the person that drove by you fast would be like, like, hey, do you want to talk to them? No, I'm going to work, man. I'm headed to work. I don't want to stop and talk to that person. I don't care about them. I just wanted to go off for a second and move on, right? The people you care about that are close to you in your proximity, man, you care about them and you want to make sure that that works out, right? So anyway, so
I just want to add one thing to
please.
this, setting the stage. Okay, one topic. Don't
Yeah.
try to include all the problems that you have with like one topic at a time, one conflict at a time. And you remember 10 years ago, you said this, and then you said it again yesterday.
And I'm bringing it up because that's like
And
what you did last month. Like, whoa.
yeah, now you got to deal with the current problem, the current situation. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
my husband helped me a lot with that. So
Really?
yeah.
All right. Oh, in our marriage.
Yeah, in our marriage.
True.
Can we just stick to what happened yesterday?
That's
you're
right.
talking about a month ago or 2 months or 10 years ago. Woo!
Yeah, we're not that smart. Going, I don't remember that. So don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, set the stage, name the topic, okay? Get a time, a place, context, simple, neutral, respectful, supportive, and again, get advice. Check with an advisor. And an advisor, KP, what's up, man?
I just saw him.
But getting someone to just kind of say, hey, I got to have this talk, and I tend to get worked up, or I tend to check out if they, even look in the wrong direction when I'm talking to whatever. That trigger you. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So yeah, set the stage, and then ask for their perspective. Say, I want to have this conversation. Can I talk to you about how it came across to me when you were running late, or when you did this, or whatever the issue is? We can do this in our marriages, right, as well. Do you remember what I'm referring to? Yes, okay. So then ask for their perspective, okay? What's your view what happened from your perspective? And then use some active listening skills that we'll talk about next, okay? And then provide your opinion. Affirm. You don't have to agree. You can affirm. I understand where you're coming from. The best thing to do is to repeat back to them what you heard them say. Did I get that right? And then share your opinion. Share how it's impacted you, which is a feeling-oriented thing, okay? And yeah, and that will help you. So I'm not going to go through all of that, but I will say this. This is really important. And I think this is something that I'm really learning the value is that apologies really help develop agreements and a path forward. You know what I mean? And so figuring out a way, what can you own? Own your stuff, okay? And it's not just owning, but you have to offer something as well. You have to own your stuff, and then you have to offer something. You know what I mean? You can't just, just own it, but own your stuff and say, hey, in the future, I want to do this better. Okay, in the future, I want to commit to you this. You don't need to overpromise. I promise. I know that's a lie. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to overcommit. Let your yes be yes. Okay, I promise I'll never ever do it again. Like, you're like really setting the bar way too high, and that way if you blow it, now you're gonna run and hide, or be ashamed, or avoid them, or lie. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I want to commit to you that in the future, I'm going to really work hard at being this way, okay? Offer something. And then anything else you need from me, okay? Or is there anything else we need to do moving forward, right? So, and these are all helpful, but apologies are helpful for agreements and moving forward. And sometimes you feel like, I don't have anything to apologize for. I don't think, well, you can apologize to me. You started this whole mess. Well, you had a response. Maybe you're just apologizing for your response.
Yeah.
Man, I'm sorry I got so angry with you. And maybe they didn't know you were angry. I don't even apologize. I got angry. They don't know I was angry with them. I hid it really well. Chances are they know. More importantly, who knows?
God.
The big guy knows, okay? All right, so You need to be you need to apologize for getting angry, for getting over the top, right? And these things are all part of agreement. You may think in the moment that person's sitting there, they're not. Trust me, it's having an impact. It is having an impact. And if it isn't or not, it's impacting God. It's impacting you. You can't control whether it impacts them or not. Okay? But you know there's something you can own.
Yeah.
I got really angry with you. I didn't say anything, but I got angry. I don't want that in my heart. How about that? I just don't want that in my heart. I want to be right with God. And they may go, that's your problem, you know. You're right. It's my problem. That's what I'm doing. I'm owning it.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to apologize to you. And I tell you, at the end of the day, God's pleased. You've done your part. And I believe eventually people come around.
Yep.
People come around. Or they start avoiding you, like, too righteous. I mean, but you're not doing it to be self-righteous. Amen. Anything you want to share, honey?
Well, did you want to share about this acronym here?
I think we'll get to that
Get to
after
that,
this.
okay.
Yeah, we're going to come to that in a second. So what's our next slide here? Okay. Yeah. All right. So and I think this is a short little clip. You know, you put it back up. This is a short little clip to watch. I think it's helpful because the reality is this: when you go into these conversations, I think what you'll find is that sometimes all the work you did assuming up front how it's going to go, anticipating all of these things, that sometimes our perspectives are a little bit off, right? Because we have a lens that we look through. You know what I mean? And this is the problem with emails and text messages as communication. Don't ever get into a conflict in print unless you have a PhD in communication or something like that in writing. You know what I mean? Because I guarantee you're going to write something really bad. And it doesn't matter even if you have a PhD. People attach to words what those words mean to them. You know what I mean? Or if I said that, this is what I would have meant. So I know that's what they meant. Like, nope, maybe not. You know what I mean? So you have a perspective on how that word, if I had written it that way, I surely would have been meaning that this. And the person goes, no, I didn't mean that. I don't even know how to write. You know what I'm saying? I was just responding, you know, or maybe they meant it that way. So don't get into a verbal dispute or verbal debate. Stop writing. Stop writing. Stop texting it. Plus, they're going to take it and show it to everybody, and then all of their friends are going to read the same thing into it as well. Then they're going to look up the definition for I mean, it's just going to be bad, okay? So don't get into as much as you can written conflicts.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, this is check your lens. Go. It's not going. No, kidding.
From one point of view,
Okay, go back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, back it up a little bit so we can get the.
an event seen from one point of view gives one impression. Seen from another point of view, it gives quite a different impression. But it's only when you get the whole picture you can fully understand what's going on. Then,
So, you know, right? So, right, it kind of depends on what point of view. And we all have our point of view. We all have our lens that we're looking through, okay? And this is how we live life. We actually live life this quickly. You know what I mean? On the spot, we're living life that fast, and we've got that point of view. And that's what we see happening. And you take a different angle, you go, ooh, didn't see that. And then there's another angle. But then here's what we do after we've made that mistake. Then we double down on the mistakes. like, oh, yeah? Yeah, well, you know, look at that jacket he's wearing. That's not really the point. I mean, we start doubling down on our sin, And like we're really gonna, because we don't want to admit we were wrong. Instead of going, I'm so sorry that I got in all that, we now have to prove ourselves, double down on it, which just makes it so much worse. Again, it's like, what were we talking about again?
Exactly.
What was the issue again?
Yeah.
So anyway, you want to share. My wife wants to share.
So I want to share an example how it's important for us to practice this because this isn't how we normally deal with conflicts, right? At least not me. I've learned how to deal with conflict in a more healthy way. In my conflict example, you know, if I were to put into practice setting the stage and the things we just talked about, I had a conflict with my neighbor's dad. I would go back and I would say, this is setting the stage. I was wondering if I could talk to you about digging up the plants the other day. I want to know, I wanted to be a good neighbor. Wait a minute. I want to know that I want you to know that I want to be a good neighbor. So I even brought you a gift, right? That's setting the stage. Hey, I don't know this guy very well. Hey, here's a gift. Can we talk about what happened the other day? And ask for their perspective and listening. Do you mind sharing with me how you felt when you saw me digging up the plants? Like, I'm curious about how did that make you feel? Like, what were you thinking? Instead of assuming, oh, he has issues, you know. And then I can provide my opinion. So, you know, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You felt like I was destroying your son's garden, the lawn. You know, I want you to know that my heart was to really be a good neighbor, and I'm sorry if you felt like I was destroying the lawn. And then apologize and develop an agreement together. I apologize. I see how you felt because you didn't know that I got permission from your son to do that. I will only help in the future. I will only help in the future if I'm asked to help. I won't just take it upon myself, you know, to do that. So I think, you know, setting the stage, asking for their perspective, it is so helpful because it puts you, instead of you reacting, you're in a posture where you're finding out more facts, you're finding out the truth of what was really going on,
So you could on your own, sometimes you could, you know, practice setting the stage for your conflict. Even if it's resolved, you know, like Robin. Robin didn't end up getting to that point, okay, but you can set the stage, name the topic. Then you can ask for their perspective. How would you word that? Provide your opinion. How would you word that? Mm-hmm. What kind of apology and agreement can the two of you come to together, okay? So that's it on that part, right? That wraps up that section there. We still got to move on to misunderstandings, and that video was the beginning of this section on misunderstandings because conflict ends up, right? So much of conflict just hinges on a lack of communication, or I'll just say miscommunication, and misunderstanding. And so much of what we struggle with, right, is we misunderstand what people intend. Here's the funny thing about humans. We judge ourselves by our intent, and we judge others by their impact. You know what I mean? Right? What you did hurt me. And then when you hurt someone else, but that's not what I intended to do. You know what I'm saying? So we give ourselves the grace of intent, and them, we don't give them, it's all about how they impacted me, right?
Yep.
So anyway, so we're going to talk about this point of misunderstanding. So the goal is to learn how misunderstandings are a large part of the most common conflicts. And so this little, you know, picture graphic helps to understand that a little bit. And so I'll let Rob, you want to explain this?
So the public is what everyone sees, right?
Or what you see.
An action happens, okay? We all see it. And then the lens that we interpret that action is different because we all have our own perspectives, right? even in that video, like depending on what perspective you're looking from, it's the effect. We're all going to have a different, effect, like what we see, the effect of the action is. So what's important when it comes into the effect, this is what's going on internally in you. Okay, you saw something that happened, it affected you in a certain way. Now you can either assume or you can be curious about the effect that it had. You can ask questions.
Or the intent.
Right,
Yeah.
the intent of the person. You can ask questions and ask the person, hey, did you intend to hurt me in this way? Did you intend to do this? Or you cannot say anything and just assume. They intended to hurt me. They intended to,
You can't hear?
Hello, hello? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hello, hello? Hello. So we can be curious or we can assume what the person's intent was. If we assume, then we create a vicious cycle where, if we assume that they had evil intent, that's what we're always going to assume about that person. And we'll continue to do that until we ask questions about their intent. So the way to break this cycle of assumption and intending, and especially if we assume that their intentions are bad, that cycle won't stop until we ask questions and we're curious. Like, hey, can we talk about what happened? Can you share with me what your intent was? That's the only way to break the cycle and, to get problems resolved, so.
All right, so what you get to do now, you get to take your conflict, and I want you to think about the assumptions you made. At some point, you made an assumption in this conflict, okay? It's a conflict, so you made an assumption. So what did the other person do? Mm-hmm. What action did they do? You write that down. How did you feel? How did it impact you? What did you believe their intent was, or what did you assume? And what other possible explanations could there be for their action? So you get to write that down, and then we're going to let you break out into your group. Go back with your partner, and they're no longer strange. We can get back with your partner and talk about that. Okay, go ahead. We'll give you 5 minutes to write and then 5 minutes to talk. assumption and judgment. So does anyone want to share maybe an assumption or judgment they jumped to with their conflict? You could do, an action, a feeling, what you believe their intent was. Yes, Hazel.
So my conflict had also to do with my neighbors, which is funny.
Oh,
Long story short, my neighbors, they park in our driveway. And we live in a duplex. And so we kind of share a driveway, but everyone has their own driveway. But they've been blocking me in. There's been quite a few times. There was one day I was late to class. And I was like, I need to get out. So I'm like banging on I'm a peace breaker, by the way. So I'm like banging on the door, like, telling them to move. And
just like a mama.
Exactly. Just like my mother. But yeah, so I basically, I wrote them a note and I was like, hey, I need you guys to move. Like, I tried to knock on the door. Like, if you want to talk about this, you need to come talk to me. But I think some of the assumptions I made was that they were just being rude, inconsiderate, lazy. They didn't want to park in their spot. They just wanted to, inconveniently park where my car was, and that they were just being, ridiculous. So those are my assumptions.
Yeah. Oh, Sam.
Well, mine was, the example I'm using is one with my older daughter. She's a new adult, and it's really not great. And so, but there was an incident where she was dishonest with me about where she was going. And my assumptions I automatically jumped to is like, she's a liar, she's so dishonest, she's sneaky, she's been misleading me, she's deceitful. And so that was really tough, because then I started doing like the whole stages, the personal attacks and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of how I was raised, though. You lie, you get the right act. So, lying, deceitful, go ahead. No, Greg.
Yeah, I had a situation with my aunt about 8 years ago, about a year before my mom passed away. And I remember, she agreed to help me with that situation. But her idea of helping what I thought she wanted to do was completely different. But there was a couple different instances where she literally called me on my job, basically trying to make me feel bad about what I wasn't doing to do better. And it got to the point where it was affecting my job, so I just laid into her. And I thought that she was trying to make things harder on me to try to get me to do what she wanted. Mm-hmm. And so I just told her, hey, don't call me at my work ever again. In fact, don't call me ever again, period. So I just completely lost it with her. But yeah, that's my situation there.
Okay. Appreciate that. Love how honest we are.
This may sound like it shouldn't be a big deal, but I hate being interrupted. Okay. Like if I'm speaking, and so I wrote about a conflict I had with a friend. I was sharing with her what I felt was something important and deep, and she just continually interrupted me. And so I just felt like and when that happens, I just shut down, and I just feel like it's hard to engage with a person like I was before. And I just felt disrespected, and like she felt that what she had to express was more insignificant or more relevant than what I was already saying. And so then and wasted a whole weekend just feeling disconnected from her. But I mean, finally we did get to talk about it and resolve it. But I just thought she's disrespectful, and again, she thinks her thoughts are more accurate or more relevant than what anybody else ever has to say. So I don't want to talk to you at all.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good. It's good. So does anyone want to share? So that's good that we got their action, we got the impact, right? We got what we believe their intent was, the assumptions we made, and so we're gonna go on to the intention now, right? So you got to do a little intention check. What is the intent? So we're gonna learn how to clarify intent of actions. You know, so something happened. Something happened. There was an action. I was affected. How do I clarify, you know, how do I reconcile how I'm impacted with what their intent is? You know, how do I reconcile that? How do I check that, you know? And then there are some other tools of even how I de-escalate myself so that I can check that, right? You know, we all have a reaction when we get a little worked up. And there actually is good science that everybody has a physical reaction when we get, you know, some of our hearts slow down, some of them speed up, you know what I mean? But there is a physical reaction, okay? Does anyone know what their physical reaction is when they really get worked up? Yeah. That's good. Right, right. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
I get tension in my head, and I can just feel like my blood pressure going up, my head's about to pop. I get that adrenaline rush, heart pounding, my hands start shaking.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. So when I get upset, I start kind of, you know, I start bouncing a little bit. When I get really angry, I start kind of like moving my legs a little bit. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm ready to run, you know, or what I'm ready to do. But I just feel like, okay, it's about to be go time or something. I don't know. So I start getting a little bit kind of, sometimes it's rocking back and forth, but I start getting a little bit that way. Anyone else knows what happens? Yeah, which that works good in our marriage. I start doing this, and she starts backing up. Yeah. And, Greg, did anyone else have a response? Yeah. Kyle?
Yeah, my throat gets tight and I kind of have trouble speaking.
Yeah. So we all have a physical reaction. It's actually a good exercise. The next time you get angry, figure out what your body's doing. Just take a second and go, what's happening to what is my body doing right now? And just to know what's happening in your body, like it's a really excellent self-awareness. You kind of know, I'm getting really upset. I'm moving my fingers, like, what is happening right now? You know, I'm sweating. Like, take a moment. In fact, if you do that, you're probably less likely to do that other dumb thing you do. You know what I'm saying? So let me figure out what's happening to me physically right now before I say anything. Because what you're going to say next may not be healthy, or maybe even what you do next may not be healthy. So get an awareness of what is happening to my body. You know, is an evil spirit taking over me? What is going on? And I think if you can begin to see that, that's how you start to know, okay, my ears are moving. I must be getting worked up again. You know what I mean? Say, I got to take a deep breath. I got to settle myself down a little bit, right? So, but anyway, that's what happens. So check your intention. What's my intention here? What's the other person's intention, rather? So an intention check, non-judgmental, briefly describe what the other person did. What your conflict. What did the other person do? Okay? What question would you ask them about their intention? Okay? You got to be ready to listen. Stay curious and clarify. Take notes if applicable. All right? And then describe the effect if necessary. Okay? So, I want you to try to write down. I know the conflict happened a long time ago in some cases, but non-judgmentally and briefly describe what the other person did, the action, okay? And then what question would you ask them about their intention? All right? And then, since we're pretty good at assuming, what people might say, how are you going to describe, how would you describe how you're affected by what they say next? So give that a shot. I know it's not going to be perfect. I want you to take about 3 minutes and write that down. Just give it a shot. Try to answer those 3 questions if you can.
Advance. On number 4, describe the effect impact. We're describing the effect impact of what they say their intentions were.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to,
Your initial impact of the conflict. This is the impact of them after they've explained to you.
as you're checking their intents. Yeah.
Or maybe you've already kind of done this and you know.
So I know I didn't give you a lot of time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap that up. One more thing on this, and we're going to move into the 3rd module. But I wanted to show you this because I think it's important. Can we go to that virtue continuum? All right, so if you see in the center here, these are the virtues that, we value. These are the goals of human beings, and these are the things we want to be, just genuine. We want to be people of integrity, discernment, loving, respectful, humble, diligent, temperate, courageous. And so, fortunately, right, when we're deficient in these areas, right, instead of being a person of integrity, we actually become corrupt. But in excess of integrity is what? Legalism. You know what I mean? And so, sometimes, right, we want to be people of integrity. We do. And we judge the world, you know what I mean, by these things. And so we become almost in excess. We become extremely legalistic, okay, to counter the corruptness of the world, okay? And rather than being discerning, and when we're deficient, we're foolish, okay? And when we're in excess, we become judgmental. Now, you can look at this list and you can go, where do you find yourself on the continuum? You just kind of describe yourself, yes. We would love to send these out. No, absolutely. I'll send these out for sure. I'll give these to Janice. I won't send them out. He'll send them out. So, although I think I still have your email addresses, but I still get emails. Thank you for sending them to me, by the way, Lydia. I know what's going on in the church all the time. So, so you can look at yourself. Where are you on the virtuum continuum? I know the middle is to be in the goal. The goal is to be in the middle, but where do you find yourself most likely? You find yourself more on the deficient side or more on the excessive side?
I just wanted to add, like, when we're in conflict with someone, okay, depending on how we respond, it affects our virtue, right? Like, if we feel like someone's trying to hurt us, or we make these assumptions that we kind of all share, we'll respond either, on either
One side or the other.
continuum. Yeah. So I just think it's really interesting, like, if you really think about it, how you respond shows which way you lean, when you're in conflict. We can either get legalistic, judgmental, we can become enabling, or we're like, okay, you do that to me, I'm gonna do it back to you, and I'm gonna be foolish too, and so.
I think I find
Well said. Well said. I think it is interesting, right? Because all of this goes back to what? This goes back to us, intrapersonal. You know, this is what's going on. When we are in conflict within, where do we go? Do you work more? I'm just going to work. Or you go, you know what? I'm going to Netflix for the next 6 days, you know. I'm going to watch TV and lay around and do nothing. I'm out. I'm out of it, you know what I mean? You know, when you get stressed, tense, conflict, you know, in turn, that's what stress is. That's what all it is. That's intrapersonal stuff. When you go there, I'm going to get some ice cream, some Haagen-Dazs, and I'll see y'all in a couple of weeks. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to work it out. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's where we tend to go, right? And so or we become, you know, more strict, okay? Or we become more lascivious. I can't even say that word. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So we just loose. We just let ourselves go a little bit more, okay? So, you know, I think you can look at that, and honestly, you know where you are, okay? Again, I think we all in the middle. I think that's who God wants us to be. I think that's what we all want to be, right? And I think we're there many of the times. It's just when those moments come up, you know, in life. And so I think dealing with our own intra stuff will help us to stay in the middle and help us to not lean too far to right or to the left, okay? All right, good. All right, so we are going to be done with this, and we're going to move on to our third module. I think, are we done with that, Daniel? We done? Yeah. Oh, no, there's one more video. Daniel, go to that last video. So just kind of wrap up the last one. Keep going. Keep going. Go further. There you go. So just real quick, you know, just remember, right? Get in a conflict, try to stay calm. Okay, check yourself. Check and manage your own emotions and triggers. Be able to identify what they are. We're going to talk about triggers a little bit next. Okay? Ask what your needs are. Ask what you need. Ask what the other person needs. L is for listen. Be curious. Okay? And I think you guys have probably heard me say that. I believe curiosity is a cure to discrimination, bias, racism, and many other isms in the world. You know, be curious. And then manage the problem together, but stay calm. All right? Okay, so we're going to go to the last module here, and we actually very likely could wrap up early. You guys need a little break yet? You good? Okay. We'll get halfway through this one, and we'll give a... Yeah, you guys may need some coffee. Okay. All right, so this is the last module here. We'll go over, and oh, you want to show that video now? Let's go ahead and do it, Daniel. All right, so this is Daniel likes it. So actually, Daniel, let's come back to that. Go ahead, put up module 3. We'll come back to that video, okay? All right. So this is called relationship wisdom, and so we've kind of looked at. Go ahead. The next. Am I controlling this? All right, you can go to the next slide. Okay, next slide. Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So hopefully what we'll do here, sometime, it's really hard. So, okay, let's look at this verse, Genesis 50, right? This is kind of appropriate, right? So let's look at Genesis chapter 50, verse 19. And you're right. It's kind of hard to imagine that, but there are some people, and this is a hard thing for us to realize, right? Sometimes there actually are people, although we're all made in the image of God, we don't always act in the image of God, right? And so there are people like that, and and when you think about it, we haven't always acted in the image of God. Yeah, I can. And of course, this is Joseph, who you might say his brothers, I don't know, I think they kind of wanted to hurt him. So these guys had a really great idea. I mean, okay, we're not gonna kill him. We're just gonna throw him in the system. No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna sell him as a slave. That'll resolve everything. like that's crazy. You know what I mean? So I don't think they had anything good intended for Joseph. And Joseph is navigating this whole thing as they come back. He's going, oh man, I got him in the palm of my hand. And Joseph is grappling with, they need to suffer. I mean, they need to go through it a little bit. I mean, the whole scene, like, Joseph, just let it go, man. It's not easy to let it go. I mean, I've had a rough few years because of these dudes. Almost died a few different times, And I've really worked hard to get to this place in life. You know what I mean? And so, and then they show back up. I think Joseph is really grappling with these guys and with God. Because it's kind of a silly game he's playing, kind of going, I don't know, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Put the cup in, I want to take his brother, but it was hard. It's a hard life, right? And so Joseph here, I love it, verse 19 says, but Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me. God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. How about that? That's a high calling, right? That Joseph was able to say, you're right. I believe you, I think you intended me harm. And they went, no, actually did intend you harm. I mean, but we can't lie. I mean, we wish we hadn't done it now, because now we didn't. Who knew you were going to grow up and be? I mean, you said you was, but who knew? Right? And so, and they said you intended this for bad, but God intended it for good.
And I think you can't control other people's intentions. You can only control yourself. And I think that's really important to remember. You can only control you being a woman of virtue and how you respond and how you deal with it. You can't control how people respond to that. And I think that story is a great example of that. So.
And trust me, I know this is not easy, And I think the one thing I'm learning, even as I embrace this peacemaker thing I want to do, it's a little bit scary. I'm kind of going, now, am I going to snap at any moment and I'm going to undo all of this? You know what I mean? So I'm a little scared. Like God, I just want to teach about this. I don't want to live it. You see what I mean? I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to have to live this out every day. But it's really interesting. I moved to St. Louis, and I was telling the church there, you will not believe. One day I walk out of, I'm sitting in my truck talking on the phone. I'm at Home Depot. And I pull up, there's a car in front of me, and in a car park, and I park, and I'm sitting there, and I see these two guys walk out, and so I'm actually gonna, step out, wrap up my call, and say hello to them. So as I'm wrapping up, the phone call, I close the door, and the one guy walks around. I mean, literally walks out of the store, walks around. This is my truck. His car's right here. He walks around to the one side, and he looks in front of the car of the vehicle, and then he looks up at me, and he looks at it again, and he looks up at me. I'm like, and then he says, "This friend, me almost hit my car," like that. And I'm thinking, what? I mean, I'm parked. You know what I mean? And he just kind of, eyeballs me, and the other guy eyeballs me. And for a moment, I'm thinking, I will break your. I mean, I'm like, I'm about to get into a fight over. Now, that was all that was said. And in my heart, I'm just going, well, jump froggy, come on, man. In my mind, I'm just thinking, well, I'm like, what am I going to get into a fight? How am I going to explain this? Like, there was really nothing done. He just looked at the car. I could have walked away. And I just sat there and just went, what is happening right now? I've not had that kind of interaction with anybody in years. I wasn't ready for it. And I went, oh, man, I'm really got to embrace this peacemaking thing, because all I had to do was say, hey, what you go? I mean, I could have said anything, which could have led to me in the parking lot of Home Depot scrapping with two guys over what? Because he's looking at his car, and he's looking at me, and looking at his car, and he's giving me that look like, I'm like, well, what you want to do? And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, well, that's not the last of these moments, God, because I live in a city, and there's a lot of crazy people in the city of St. Louis. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the city of St. Louis. So I think I got to live this out. It was a small thing, and I don't know what I think I said, oh, man, did I hit your car? And he didn't say anything, so I just went in. And I reflected on that, like, that could have gone really ugly, but it didn't, praise God. So, but yeah, so I think, these kind of moments, I think God will give me opportunities. I'm just hoping he will give them to me a little slower in the future, so. So I think, that, so we can empathize with people who, who are going through difficulties, or frankly, people who live to hurt others, people who live to stir up conflict, people who live, until you develop your conflict theology and get it all worked out, you just got to pray and trust God, So that's what I will say. I think, but I do believe that as I think about this often, like, man, I'm going to have better stories to share down the road, and that's a little scary, but it's good. It's time. At 52, I shouldn't be fighting in the parking lot, so and I'm also in the ministry. I'm a Christian, so I shouldn't be doing that anyway, right? So, actually, I don't think I would. But anyway, so let's talk about relational wisdom. Let's talk about being aware of your emotions, managing your negative emotions, using emotions in a positive way to influence others, right? So this is really, really, really important. We talked about self-awareness. Self-awareness is just super key to being able to work our way through things, right? And all of us are triggered by something, okay? And so, but again, self-awareness is the ability to be aware of what you're feeling, any negative feelings you're having, and to use those emotions in a way to influence others. So you got to ask yourself, okay, what triggered me in my conflict? Shaz shared what triggered her. It's a thing that triggers her regularly. Now, I'm not a therapist, or anything like that. It probably goes back to something else, right? But being able to identify what triggers her. Shaz said, I hate being interrupted, And so maybe what someone would say to her, you're probably going to get interrupted, you know? So what are you going to do when you get interrupted? How are you going to manage your emotions when you get interrupted? Because has anybody been, we all get interrupted, right? We can anticipate, sure enough, like I can, God's going to put situations in our lives where people are going to do things that trigger us. You're going to get triggered by something. Satan knows who we are. He knows how it works, and you'll be driving home, someone's going to cut you off, something bad's going to happen, and you're going to get triggered, right? So I want you to think about what triggered you in your conflict. And how did you respond to your trigger? Do you guys have a place to write this down in your book? You have a place for that? All right, good. Okay, good. All right, so would you write that down for me? Write down what triggered you in your conflict. If you can think about what triggered you. And then how did you respond to that trigger? And how did your response work out for you? Do you see a pattern, in similar responses in other conflicts? And then you got to write down what you could have done differently before, during, or after the conflict. So if you can write that down, that'll be helpful. Back in St. Louis, so I officiate games, and I'm working a game for a really good team. It's a competitive game. Going into the game, my partner said, "Oh, this will be a blowout. This one team's going to beat the other team by 20." I go, "Great, we'll get this over with." But we were at the other team's home court. Game starts. In the first quarter, I go to my partner and say, "This is not the way this is supposed to be going," right? Because the other team's up by 15. I'm going, uh-oh. So this other coach is known to be, he hasn't been through this class, let's put it that way. So, but multiple technical fouls, big problem, big pain in the rear end for a lot of officials, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, they're losing 20-some points. I got to give 2 kids technical fouls. It's a mess. He's upset. And like anything else, when you're losing, it's the official's fault. So anyway, fourth quarter, he's getting hammered. Game's out of control. And so he starts yelling to his kids. It's like a minute left. They're down 20 points. Foul. Okay, foul hard, he's telling them to do. So anyway, whack him, give him a technical foul, and then game ends, and I'm walking off the court, and I just kind of glance over, and again, he's kind of looking at me. You know, this is a trigger for me. When you start mean mugging me and eyeballing me, you know, I kind of know what that means. So I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, run on over here. And the ex-Christian side of me said, well, just run on over here, you know? So, but anyway, so I just sort of turn away from him and I walk off the court. And then I find out later he did this to me and all these other things. And I'm like, so I'm really triggered, you know, like, so for a while, I was like, am I going to run into this guy in the community? And how am I going to respond to this? And I did everything. I had a fight with him. I choked him. I apologized to him. I said I was sorry. I invited him out to church. I did everything, you know, to this guy. And so, but in my mind, I never ran into him. No. So, but I kept thinking, if I run into him, man, how am I going to respond? And depending on the day, I was in a fight with him, or I was sharing my faith with him. Just depends on the day, you know. And so, you know, I don't know, but I'm trying to be prepared for running into this guy in the community. He's actually a very influential official person in the community, coach. And so, yeah, I'm trying to prepare myself for that. So I don't know when I do run into him. If I do, I'm gonna have to act like I'm gonna have to be a Christian. So anyway, I just say, you know, that hey, there are things that trigger us, and so yeah, I may have to do a mock situation about that. So, but Daniel, go to the next slide. I think the graphic, the self-awareness. Yes, that one there. So here's the thing you need to understand, right? About, you know, like I talked about kind of psychology of conflict, if you will. Okay? When we get triggered and we start escalating, you know, to this crisis mode, okay, you notice that all our physiological arousal, look at what happens to the quality of your judgment. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like the more amped you get emotionally, what's the psychological word I'm looking for? Which part of the brain is on fire? Exactly. When the more it gets on fire, okay, the more your judgment goes down. You know what I mean? You do not do anything well, okay? And but what's interesting as you recover and you come back down, okay, look at the response on the other side. It's sort of like this post-crisis depression. You know what I mean? Because when you go up there, you know when you come down, you go, oh, man. Unless you're a sociopath or something like that, you know what I mean? The sociopath just stays up there. Let's kill more people, you know what I mean? But if you're like normal, you know what I mean? If you're a normal person, you go, yeah, you're normal. You come down, you go, oh, my goodness. What did I do? What on earth? And you're borderline, you're depressed because you've made this mess, you know what I mean, of a situation. You've embarrassed yourself, you've embarrassed your family, you've embarrassed people. It's really terrible. You know, I had a game the other day, I told you, the girls' game, and there was a dad, you know, who was just losing his mind. And he's like yelling and yelling and yelling, and you know, and so one of my favorite things to do is that if it's a crowded gym and people yell, I ignore them. But it wasn't a crowded gym, so you could hear the one guy and see him, obviously. So I stopped the play. I said, he's got to go. And I kicked him out of the gym. And I know that guy went outside, and he was probably like, oh, my God, I got kicked out of the gym. My daughter has got to be so embarrassed. Like, what a humiliating thing for me to act this way in a kid's game. And I know he felt bad, and I felt bad for him, but he was really being a bottom. I mean, so like, okay, he got to get out of here. And it's funny because when I kicked him out, all the rest of the fans were like, none of the rest of them wanted to be embarrassed. Like, it was a sparse crowd. So, but I know that feeling, you know. I know that shame you go through. And so it's funny that we know that. We still can't help it, right? We just, ah! And then afterwards we're like, oh no, we want to hide somewhere, right? So we know that, but knowing what triggers you will help you, right? So during a conflict situation, we can quickly escalate our emotions, okay? We hear words, phrases, or look, or something like that. You know, your kids look at you a certain way. You go, don't you look at me like that. You know what I mean? All right, so that gets you right there. It gets you there. And then you have our responses and how we respond to it, and none of it's good, none of it's healthy. So what types of things trigger a reaction in you during conflict? What are some things that trigger you? Like I said, to me, a look triggers me. You know, it's a look with a guy. You know, and to be honest with you, it's a look with an African-American guy. If an African-American guy gives me that look, I'm like, I think I know what that means. You know what I mean? And so I get triggered by that. I also can get triggered by certain types of women, you know, can trigger me as well. I can get triggered by my kids, okay, when they're really whiny and ungrateful and entitled. I'm just like, help me, Jesus. You know what I mean? You know, not like I was never whiny, complaining, ungrateful, and maybe that's why, okay? But I can get triggered, right? So what kind of things trigger you? Write down your triggers. Write down a few of the triggers. Don't write down all. We don't have all day. If you got more than 10 triggers, then it's time for fasting and prayer, Yahweh. See, I don't know. If you're Asian, do they ever get triggered, really? It's like Asian people are just like, they don't worry about everything. Everything's calm. You know. That's true. That's true. That's just Janice, Filipinos. That's triggered. I don't know why the Asian man is always so calm until he gets upset. And even when he's killing everybody in the movie, he's still not angry. He's still giving out sage advice. I know. It's the movie that ruined, bro. Hey, I just want you to know I admired that, by the way, in Bruce Lee. No, I'm kidding.
It's good if you're aware of that. That's the whole process, is to be aware of your emotional self.
Hello?
You guys are doing good work here. Like
You
this,
really are.
I mean, it's really not easy, and I think you'll be so grateful that you did it, because you will be more aware. I feel like this has helped me so much, and more so, like, especially in my marriage and with my kids, but just in my relationships in the church. To be more aware is so helpful and so good. So Vince says it's like learning a new language.
It really is. Yeah, for me it is.
But the more you do it, it comes more naturally, so.
Okay, can we go back to the exit to nowhere slide? Great. Okay. So here's an interesting thing that can happen to you when you're in conflict, right? All right. So the other person is a villain, right? You are a victim. And by default, you're helpless. So there's really nowhere to go. You can feel that way, right? You feel like there's the evil over here, okay? I'm a victim. And below me is helplessness. So there's just nowhere to go. And so where do you go? Crazy, which is up. You know what I mean? You go up, 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 and away. You know what I mean? You just kind of, you're trapped by your own. So, Melissa and I were talking about this. I was telling her about this a few months ago, maybe, about this. I don't think I gave it to Daniel. Is there a triangle to trauma on there? Trauma triangle on there? No, it's not. So I'll just tell you about it. But I was telling Melissa about this, and then she actually did a continual ed on this thing. But it's called a traumatic triangle. And the traumatic triangle is victim, okay, top or bottom. Victim, persecuted, and smile the one. Victim, persecuted, and rescuer. So every victim is being persecuted. Therefore, they always need a rescuer. You know what I mean? And it's this traumatic triangle, right? You're a victim in life. Everything's persecuting you. Your health, oh Lord, my health is persecuting me. The weather's persecuting me. The government's persecuting me. Everything's persecuting you. You're always a victim, right? And with those people, there's only one thing. Someone's got to come along and rescue them. And that rescuer just keeps the cycle going. You know what I'm saying? They come in and rescue you, and then you become a victim again because everything's persecuting you and you need a rescue. And the rescuer themselves is a persecuted victim. You know what I mean? So this traumatic cycle just keeps going. You can't get out of it. You can't get out of it. And so I just like to say, let's do what we can to not make ourselves victims. Because when you're a victim, everything's a villain or a persecutor. You know what I mean? You're going to have way more conflict in life if you live as a victim. Oh, there they go. They're coming to take my stuff again. They're coming after me. Oh, here they come again. Oh, I mean, we've got to constantly be, and everything's victimizing us and persecuting us. Anyway, do you want to share anything on that, Melissa?
Sorry, I was actually texting out the picture to everybody. So.
Okay, that's all right.
You want to share something?
I don't really have anything.
That's okay. That's all right. I like to share my class time. So good. So something good to think about. You can look this up and read. It's a great little book. There's several good books on this, but just do a quick read on it. It's actually pretty fascinating, and actually tells you to get out of this cycle. But notice when you're being a victim, and notice when you are, because victims they have to have something coming against them at all times. It's just the way it works, okay? And the only way out of that for them, in their mind, something's got to rescue them. That rescuer could be drugs, alcohol, sex, a person. It could be a lot of things. Something bail me out of this, you know? And that thing has to keep showing up and getting them out of it constantly, okay? So be aware of that when you are a victim in life. Okay, that's it on that. All right, so we are coming around the bend here. Daniel, what's our next slide here? All right, good. So we talk about this. So strategies for self-management. Actually, I love this. This is the circle of control, okay? And I really love this little image because there are things that you can control. There are things that you can influence. And there are things that you can only be concerned about. And it will do you well to know the difference. It will do you well to know the difference. The next president of the United States, are you in control of it? Can you influence it? Can you be concerned? You're definitely not in control of it. Okay? If you think you're in control, we still have this thing called an electoral college, so you've lost even more control. Okay, so your individual vote matters, or does it? But you don't have any control over that. So put it in its right place. Your 7-year-old daughter getting a tattoo, is it in your control, influence, or concern? Control. It's in my control. I hope it's in your control. If it's not, your 23-year-old daughter getting a tattoo. Control, influence, or concern? Control. No, I'm kidding. So, it may be influence. It may be influence. You may not even be able to influence, okay? It can really only be, you can try to influence, but it may be in the concerned area, you know. Now, if you're still paying her tuition and paying for her to go to school, you probably have a little bit more influence. I'm still paying the bills. But if they're on their own, you can only be concerned. It may not even be something you need to be concerned about. So, anything else you want to say?
I think, obviously, a very practical one is masks. You know, mask mandates. Do you control the mandates? You know, like, do you influence the mandates? Should you be concerned about it? There was a brother in the church so worked up about this, about the mask mandate, and it was even causing problems in his marriage because he focused on it so much, and he was so frustrated and so upset about it. But you know, we share it with them. We share it with him, this circle, and we were like, "Can you control that, brother?" And he's like, "Wow, I have no control over it. Like, why am I letting this hurt myself and my marriage?" Because that's all he wanted to talk about when he got home from work, and it was just on his, you know. So I just think, you know, it's good to know, like, what things we can control, what things we can influence, and what things we just need to pray about, because we spend so much time getting worked up about things that we have no influence over, you know, and we should just pray about those things.
That's right. And despite what some people that make a lot of money to be on television tell you, I mean, you really don't control everything. So, you know, and you got to ask yourself, are they controlling you by getting you all worked up about it? So, anyway, I think knowing the things that are in our control, within our influence, you can definitely control your mask, but I can't control Choway's mask or Chris's mask. I can't control that. And, yeah. So, anyway, knowing that's really important. Okay, so what types of things have you tried to control and influence that you actually have no influence or control over? Too many things. Just write down one or two things. One or two things. Just so actually write down one thing. Write down one thing that you tried to control or influence that you actually have no control or influence over. And you guys are doing good work here. We're almost at the end. Okay, so I'm going to give you 7 strategies here for self-management, okay? And some of these you guys already know, all right? Practice deep breathing. Practice positive self-talk. Use a relaxed tone of voice. Speak with openness and curiosity. Frame messages positively. And provide time and space in conflict. So I want to talk about this framing messages positively. All right? Focus on your message on what can be done, like the future, right? Not what cannot be done or what you didn't do. So, even if someone comes to you because, and they're angry and they're upset and, they're like, you did this or that or blah, 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 whatever, you can easily kind of, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that. Actually, who's really, you find a really good salesperson. You've probably talked to a lot of people on the phone, customer service people. You can tell the good ones from the next. This is a good experiment. Next time you're on a call with AT&T or someone that you got to deal with and go through all these prompts and get to the person who's just really trying to be pregnant. How is your day today? I don't want to talk about my day. I just want to get this done. I've already been on the phone for 10 minutes, waiting. Anyway, but they're like really good, right? And if you're like frustrated, upset, they'll say, sir, what I can do for you is this. You're like, well, but I want that. Sir, I'm sorry, but I can do this. And they really are putting a very positive spin on you going, but I want this. And they're not, well, we can do this. Or how about that? And what they're trying to do is de-escalate you, okay, and get you to settle down. And they're coming out and saying it because they know if they say, sir, I can't do that, you're going to go, why not? You're just going to blow up, and it's going to end up being a longer call for them. So the good ones go, well, what we can do, sir, is this. How about this, sir? How about that? I've never gotten upset on a call. I've just heard this happen. So, no, but yeah, and the good ones do that, to patronize me and say, well, sir, how would you like me to talk to you? But I think that's really good, and really good companies, they do that. But look, there's no point in going, nope, not gonna happen, can't. You think that's triggering? I think the studies show that that's very triggering. So I think you can think about how to de-escalate people in conversations, in interactions with them. I'll give you another little tip that's really, you can read this. There's a book called De-Escalating. I forget the name of the guy who wrote it. When someone is really angry, okay, just to say, you're angry. To acknowledge that they're angry. You say, you are angry. And usually people go, yeah, I'm angry. You know what I mean? Because they really want to just be acknowledged. People really just want to be acknowledged. I mean, they're going on and on and on and on and on. And when people get angry, we get nervous. We get worked up. We're going, but don't be yelling at me. We kind of get defensive. And what if you just say, yeah, we get nervous, or our own insecurities come out and we're taking it all personal. But if we just say, you're angry. And usually people go, yeah, really angry. You feel disrespected. You're hurt. And it helps people to go, thank you for acknowledging me. They calm down a little bit, and then they can talk to you with some reason. All right? So, but we have to de-escalate ourselves first, right? So deep breathing, positive talk, tone of voice, relax your tone of voice, be open and curious, frame things positively, and give time and space. People often need space to think about, process the information, okay? So just say, hey, you want to take a break now? Can we take a break here? And can we come back to this, right? Because, again, we're peacemakers, and so it's not going to help us to be all escalated with them and frustrated and worked up, right? So maybe you did that in your conflict. Chances are if you did that, you probably ended it. If you didn't do that, it probably went to the next level. Maybe not all the way to divorce, but it certainly took it to the next level. All right, we're almost done. Last section here, I believe. Two sections, 3 sections. All right. So let's talk about difficult people. This will be quick, though. Let's talk about difficult people here, all right? So we already talked about. Oh, sorry. Let's take 5. Actually, let's take 10. Take 10 minutes. Take a break. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Who's going to go to the bathroom? I don't know what that was. All right, so we want to spend these last few minutes here talking about your difficult person. All right, and so your difficult person is the person with whom you had the conflict with, and so you need to write down some words to describe your difficult person. Whatever words you want to use. They're a difficult person, so you got to write down words that appropriately describe them. Yeah, without a name. Robin has prideful, selfish.
Blaming, always right. Those types of words.
You can't just put a name like Serena.
Shawanda, I got a lot under here.
Serena is a verb.
People who don't care, people who are unwilling to fight, make excuses. Those are just examples.
I want you to just think for a second, like, are there any insights you gain from writing down things about your difficult person? Are your triggers? Okay, that's really good, Matt. Any other things you gain, like about writing down the words that describe your difficult person? That's good. Matt said that the difficult person, the one thing he gains from writing down the words that describe them is that those descriptions are the things that trigger him. Anita?
Well, sadly, I look at them and I'm like, oh, dang, it's me.
Anita said that that's her. The words that she wrote down are the things that are her. Nate?
Yeah, it's interesting. Everything I was writing down, it's not like they're one word. It's more about what people don't do. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Okay. Nate wrote down the things that they don't do. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm not very nice.
You're not very nice. Tammy says she's not very nice. Did you have to write those mean things about that person? Okay. All right. Yeah.
I was going to say a lot of mine are like things that don't seem real, like, people who are fake, people who talk like they know everything, like things that just aren't real.
Okay. Okay, good. So, does this have the chance to have any kind of impact on you going forward? Okay. Yeah, I think, when we learn what the things that trigger us or the things about that difficult person that bug us so much, hopefully, if anything, hopefully it helps us to go, okay, I've got to be paying attention when this is around or when this is happening. When I see that look, I know what that look means. That look is a chance for me to tap in with God, okay, and to go, I'm getting a look, God, and you know what that look does to me, okay, and I think then I'm better able to move past it, okay? Or when you hear those words, or that person cuts you off for traffic, or whatever it might be, you can be on the lookout for that. You can pray about those things. You know what I mean? God, if I get the look today, help me to respond appropriately. If I bump into this coach, help me to respond righteously and godly. So anyway, we're going to kind of, I want to talk about something here that will really help us, and it's active listening. Anyone ever do any active listening exercises before? Okay, good. Maybe, okay, it's good. Active listening demands giving your full attention, body language, responses, everything needs to sort of be considering the other person. So active listening means being engaged as much as possible. Listening to the point where you can repeat back what the person says, or at least rephrase it to the point where they agree. And that really is the goal of active listening. I'm listening to the point so I can say it back to you and have you go, got it. But then if you say it and you don't have it, they can say, yeah. They can add on, or they could correct you about what you missed. So active listening is validating, okay, what someone says. It's accepting the other person's thoughts, their feelings, their sensations, their behavior, and their understanding. It means reflecting what they say, validating, and also reflecting what they say back to you. Just so I hear you right, you're saying this. And I was going to say this to Sam. You know, when someone says to you, yeah, I actually am trying to hurt you, say, so let me get this straight. You're trying to hurt me? You know what I mean? Yes, I'm trying to hurt you. Okay. You know what I mean? Guess I got to decide to forgive that and let that go. Right? Because maybe they're trying to get a reaction, maybe they're trying to get a fight out of you. You got to decide what you're going to do. And I really have this thing, I just go, I joke about this sometimes, but at what point am I willing to go to prison? Or hell? I mean, really, am I really able to get as crazy as the guy in that parking lot? Like, can I really go? I don't know how crazy he would be willing to go, but am I really willing to get that crazy? Like, like, I know I have limits on how crazy I can get. I got kids, I got a wife, I got God, I got all of these things in it. Like some people have nothing. They have nothing. They have something to live for. They just don't know they have something to live for, right? And so they just go, I can go all the way. I mean, I'm willing to go to prison. I'm willing to let it all hang out. I'm going, I can't go there. I'm sorry. You just got to let you go, man. And sometimes you got to just let them go. Yeah. Please.
When I was growing up as a teen, and even in my 20s, I would hear, when it comes to that type of person that is very difficult, I would hear, like he said, they don't have anything. They don't have anything going on. So a lot of them, I'm bored. You can literally see they're bored. And they go to the club. They said, I want to go to the club tonight. Why? To fight somebody. Mm-hmm. Why? Because my boyfriend, this, that, and the other, and stress. And so it's a lot of that going on when you're dealing with difficult people to me.
Yeah. So, and again, we can't control difficult people. You know what I mean? We can only control ourselves, right? So, reflecting. This is a skill, active listening. It's a step further than validating. You pay special attention to the content, the feelings, and the meaning behind the message. And it's really important when you're actively listening that you don't hijack people's narrative. And how do you hijack someone's narrative? Oh, that happened to me one time. Yeah, but we're not talking about you. You know what I'm saying? So, like, oh, yeah, I know how you feel because when I did this, like, okay. You know what I mean? Well, I'll just let you talk and then we'll let you go on today. So you're not actively listening if you're talking about yourself. You know what I mean? So to actively listen means to listen. I know we have this thing in us where we really want to relate. But they're not asking you to relate. I mean, they're just asking you to listen. Does that make sense? And by hijacking their narrative, it is interruptive. It's off-putting, and it makes people feel like, oh, so now this is about you. You know what I mean? And then you're in this weird competition where now they're trying to one-up your story. Right? So did you have a question? Yeah. Or a comment?
I love to talk to people. I love to encourage them. They say, I'm not feeling very good. I said, well, what will make you happy? What will make you happy? So then listening is what I enjoy doing so much. I enjoy listening to what will make them happy. And so, you know, it's like if they say, oh, I want to go to the negative, I'm like, no, I want to hear what's going to make you happy. Okay, so tell me what will make you happy. And if they don't want to keep talking, then I say goodbye.
That's good. That's good. That's really good. All right, so the 4 F's for validating. All right, okay. Feelings first, facts follow. All right. Feelings first, facts follow, which is sometimes we're the opposite. Want to get all the facts first and then talk about how people feel later. But when people are talking, they usually tell you how they're feeling first, and then the facts follow. So you need to let them get their feelings out first, and then you can follow up with the facts. This is just good principles, even when you end up in arguments. You know what I mean? So people say, give you an example of that. Someone comes and they just kind of just going, I feel blah, 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 blah. And then you want to go, no, let's get the facts straight. Like, that doesn't really work very well, okay? Let them get their feelings out. Make sure you heard how they feel. And then the facts come later. Because none of us are real accurate when we're triggered or when we're really emotional. It's really it's kind of ridiculous to ask someone to be pinpoint accurate with all the facts when they're so escalated and emotional, right? Anyone have ever happened in a relationship? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's like, and this can happen with roommates too. You know, like you're emotional and you're telling your side of the story, and then the other person is going, no, it happened yesterday. No, it was at this time. No. Like they keep interrupting because they want to get the facts straight, and you're just trying to share your feelings. It's like, stop it. So we got to avoid that. Like just let people share how they feel and not interrupt with facts.
Yeah. So you got to believe that they believe it, right? It doesn't mean you got to like it, believe it, agree, or it's the truth. You just got to believe, no, I believe that I believe that you believe that. I mean, I definitely believe you have a conviction about that, right? Okay, this removes the barriers of healthy emotions for people. Once they get their emotions out and they put them out on the table, then they usually will talk. So I've really done something that didn't work for you, right? It's a good answer, okay? You feel really frustrated with me right now, right? Is that right? Yes, I feel really frustrated. Okay. So you don't need to give them all of the facts. That's not how it happened. That's not when it happened. I don't always do it. Am I doing it now? Am I doing it now? You know what I'm saying? All those little games we played, right? So then reflecting feelings, right? Take note of feelings. Focus on the feelings words. Infer feelings from content. Observe body language. Ask yourself, what would I be feeling in this situation? Mirror them back to the speaker. Concise statements, okay? The emotions that they're communicating to you. Man, you feel really frustrated, right? Good active listening skills. Reflect the meaning when feeling and facts are joined in one succinct, response. You feel this because of that, right? Summation of reflection. Did I skip one? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so this is just paraphrasing. When feelings and facts are joined in one succinct response to summarize a group of thoughts. Anyway, I'm not going to read all of that to you. I think you can look through all of that. Paraphrasing is a concise, response to a speaker, which states the essence of what the other person is saying, what the listener is trying to say to you. You don't necessarily, if you don't get every word for word, I'm paraphrasing here, but tell me if I got this right. Okay? And to let them know you're trying to paraphrase what they're saying. So anyway, kind of you're trying to reflect their pain, all of those things, even, and this is just really good practice sometimes, right? Okay? I scored my first goal. You know, so here, let's practice this, all right? You guys can help me with this, all right? So I want you to reflect these statements. Let's reflect these statements.
You share the statement, they respond like what's validating.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So yeah, that's right. So I'm going to share these statements. Actually, you want to do this? Robin's going to share a statement with you, and you guys get to reflect. Somebody can raise their hand and try to reflect it back to her.
All right. So my statement is, man, I just can't do anything right. So how would you validate what I just said?
Just give it a
I just feel like I can't do anything right. You want to try?
Tell me what you do good.
You do good. That's good.
That's actually very good. That's good. That's very good.
Sounds like you feel like a failure, and that's really hard.
I do feel like a failure. Yes. So that's validating, right? Like, wow, she heard me. She heard what I'm feeling. What would be, with the same statement, what would be reflective? You know, like, man, I just can't do anything right. What would be a reflective response? Who said that? Okay, so Sam said, I feel like I messed up, you know? That's good. Any other examples?
Here's one. I scored my first goal. That's it. I scored my first goal. Anyone want to try to reflect what's going on? I scored my first goal. I'm so happy for you. Okay. I'm so happy for you. Okay. That's pretty good. Okay. So without the word I, would there be another way you could reflect back to me how I'm feeling?
You must be proud of yourself.
There you go. That's really good. You must be really proud.
I was going to say, sounds like you feel accomplished or
You feel
like
accomplished.
you achieved something.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, again.
Let's practice paraphrasing.
Okay. Well,
See, this takes practice, right? Like, you got to practice this just to learn how to validate, how to be reflective, and how to paraphrase. It doesn't come natural for us, I don't think.
okay.
Oh, sorry. What's like the fine line then between like validating and reflecting? Because I feel like I kind of had the same response when you're like, oh, like reflect it back to me or validate that. I kind of feel like I kind of had similar responses in my mind. So is there like what's that like nuanced difference, I guess?
Well, validating is just simply, I hear what you're saying, okay? And reflecting back is somewhat paraphrasing back what they're saying. So validating can be, that must be hard.
Okay.
That sounds difficult. And then reflecting would be, let me make sure I understand what you're saying, okay? Or you're saying this, or is this what's going on? So you're trying to gain more understanding, perhaps? Is that right? Yeah. So
It's more mirroring, like, what the person, it's showing more empathy. Like, man, I hear how you're feeling. Validating is more, okay, stating, I understand what you're saying, but reflecting is more, I feel how you're feeling.
Okay.
another question? Go for it, Linda.
I'd like looking at myself in the mirror and smiling at myself and saying, how beautiful you are, because I'm just like Jesus, and Jesus is in me, and
That's good. That's
That's
awesome.
So I want you to respond to this statement. This COVID-19 is a conspiracy. It's a government plot. Satan's plan to control us. I'm not going to wear a mask, and we all need to have more faith and go back to meeting together at church. I want you to respond to that statement.
Which way?
Just respond. Just respond. Sounds like you just accused me of being angry. I feel like that's going to create a conflict with me, Greg.
I hear you, bro. Tell me more.
Okay, that's a pretty good response. I hear you. Tell me more.
I feel like Well, I feel like maybe you miss, like, do you miss going to church? Like, it sounds like you just miss being with people, or you miss, like, that's what I hear, maybe, I don't know.
Okay, that's good. I think, so what's the problem, not what's the problem, what's the challenge with Greg's response? And I think Greg was kind of kidding, obviously, but what's the challenge with that response? Yeah, he just assumed that he said, sounds like you're angry. And you know, if you say that to this person, you know what you're going to get back at you. You know what I'm saying? You know they're already, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, so you on the side of the government, you know what I mean? You could get that. But if Greg said that, you know, we're good friends. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Anita.
You know, I was just going to say, kind of responding to the statement, maybe saying something like, wow, it sounds like you're very passionate about this subject. You know, I hear you saying that, you know, you don't believe some of the science that's out there or what the people are saying. You know, why do you think you feel that? Or, you know, how can I help you to feel more comfortable in the situation that we're in? Or, you know, just something just to kind of let them know that you heard them, but that, you know, maybe you can work through it together.
That's good, Anita. Only thing I will say is that my oldest wife, who's always giving me grief about, stop using the word why. Let's quit asking people why. You know, so you ask me, why do you feel that way, right? And I don't think the word why is always a bad word, but sometimes it can put people on the defensive. And then you transition into solving it for me. How can I make you feel, you know what I mean? Like, so you wanted to fix it for me. How can I rescue you? You know what I'm saying? How can I make it better? So, you know, it's not your problem. To me, so it really isn't your problem. That is certainly not within your circle of control. So, yeah. Yeah, so, you know, so tell me more about that. I like what somebody said that. Well, tell me more about that. Love to hear more about that, you know. I'd love to hear some of your studies and research. If you don't want to hear it, don't say that, but don't offer if you don't want to hear it. So, because they'll give it to you, yeah.
That's what I was going to say, is that I wouldn't ask, like, tell me more, because I probably don't want to talk to this person anymore. But this would probably be a good one to use the, like, I believe you believe that kind of mindset for me, because I'm also a pretty reactive person. So I would need to remind myself that this person really believes it, and they're allowed to believe what they want too. So just, oh man, it's been tough for all of us. And then I see that you're, you know, something like validating that they hate it, because I hate it too. We all hate the situation we're in. Mm-hmm. So maybe finding the common ground, and then just telling myself they can believe that if they want to, and then go from there.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, Melissa.
I was going to say, I think, you know, that I would have to watch my own reaction in the moment, like, initially, because, like, you know, there's a lot of, like, assumptions, like, right, being made in the statement. And so that initially probably would rile me up a little bit. And so I feel like I just have to take in, like, okay, like, what is this person actually feeling? And I think if I were to respond and not react, I think it would be something like, wow, it just sounds like you feel super controlled. And this is really, really hard. And that you just really want things to go back to normal.
Yeah.
And it's really hard.
And that's really good. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to just say this. You know what's a really good response? You seem frustrated. I am frustrated. I'm really frustrated. Sometimes less is more. I mean, just kind of just reflect what they might be feeling. Oh, you seem frustrated. I am really frustrated. Aren't you frustrated? Well, yeah. I'm frustrated too, you know. I'm with you. I'm frustrated, yeah. So maybe you don't have the vocabulary and the skill that Melissa has. But what you can do is you go, you're pretty ticked, aren't you? You know what I mean? You're pretty upset. You seem frustrated. And then let them tell you the rest, you know. So I think sometimes, but what you don't want to do, you don't want to start fixing it. And by the way, good luck fixing that. I mean, how are you going to fix that? You got nothing for them. It's not a government conspiracy. Don't go down that rabbit hole. I'll prove it to you. I'll send you some emails. No, don't send me emails. And don't send me any more videos, you know. So yeah.
I remember talking to you about a really tough thing, and it was probably a 10-minute conversation. You're like, you know what? You sound like you feel bullied. It's like, yeah. It was like over. 10 minutes of rant, and you're like, yeah. And just, it's good.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
So I think these are really helpful things. So, yes, Kimmy. No. Kimmy, Dawn's talking.
Okay, I was going to say, I get this a lot because I'm a hairdresser and people are sitting in my chair and you hear so many different views. And so the first part would be a little bit harder to address, but it's like the second part, you know, of just kind of like the, you know, not going to wear a mask, that kind of stuff. I just think like empathizing with the weariness, you know, feeling weary. But I also think for me is that it's so controversial. It's usually like confusion. There's so much confusion that's happening. So as you kind of get to talk with them, usually that's a lot of like conflicting things that they're seeing or hearing, and everybody's in a state of confusion. But I would probably stay more on the other part of the feelings and not like talk about the government stuff.
Yeah.
Because it gets too controversial and very quickly.
Yeah. I love what Melissa said. You know, it's really difficult. I got an email from someone, sent out an email, and they wanted me to forward it to a bunch of people. And I read the email, and it was littered with assumptions. And it triggered me. And so I did what I said not to do. I shot an email back, wrote it up, and said, this thing is loaded with assumptions, and I'm not forwarding it to anybody. And then I said that I went, that was dumb. Should not have done that. I get a phone call from this guy who then says to me, man, you got to practice what you preach, being a peacemaker and blah, blah, blah. The person who sent the email, and I'm sitting there going, but you're the idiot that sent the email. No, I'm the idiot that sent the email. You know what I'm saying? I'm the idiot that sent the email. Because he actually sent an email well-intended that was intended to be helpful. I just read all these assumptions into it, fired back with a whole different tone and spirit than probably the one he sent out, you know, and we had a conversation where I had to apologize, and it was really good. So I then had to apologize to all these people that received the email. So, and this was just 6-7 months ago. So it happens, you know what I mean? You know, I didn't send the email on because it was littered with a bunch of assumptions that were just going to be read in a negative way. So I just can't send that email out, but good luck with that. So, but I didn't have to respond the way I did. So I'm just saying it happens all the time. And if you're going to write an email that's going to be remotely whatever, I'm learning a lesson. Write the email, walk away, come back, look at it, and go, delete. Don't send that out. So anyway, that'll be helpful. Okay, let's talk about when things really get stuck here. Are we done with that, bro? Yeah, when things really get stuck. So most of the time, conflicts can be resolved, okay, at a very problem-solving level, okay, using some skills and basic strategies. Okay, and that have been covered in this manual, and you know you can reach a resolution on them. It's tempting to give up, okay, but it's important. This is, you know, and things do get stuck. Sometimes conflicts get stuck. You reach a point, you go, I don't know where to go. And so this is where you want to bring in a third party. You know what I mean? Things are escalating, things are getting worse, it's not problem solving anymore. At the point it's becoming personal, you go, might need some help, okay? Because it's going to continue to escalate, okay? You've got to be humble enough to know, which is great, I'm trying to teach my girls this, we're in conflict. You know what I mean? We're in conflict and we need help. You know, and get help. Get a third party in. So mediation is a process. The mediation process is a way for people in conflict to explore and resolve issues with the help of an impartial third party, a third party neutral, okay? And so the third party needs to be neutral. And if you're ever brought into a conflict, well, neutral is a bad word because none of us are totally neutral, but you at least got to be willing to admit your bias, okay? And try to stay neutral as much as possible. You're not a third party if you're going to take the side of one other person, okay? You've got to give, and here's the thing about being a third party, and I'll give you a little advice on being a mediator. It's not your problem to solve. Your job is to facilitate a conversation between two people and let them work it out. Set a few ground rules, no hitting below the belt, no gouging out the eyes, no spitting, no things like that, blah, blah, blah. Go. They can't hear each other, so what do you need to do if people aren't hearing each other? What did you just learn? No, what did you just learn? You need to actively listen for them. So you talk. What I hear you saying is this. Okay? Did you hear him saying that? What did you hear them saying? What I hear you saying is this. Did you hear that? You want them to be able to listen to each other. And once they hear each other, then they're going to be able to work it out. People just need to hear each other. But at the point they're here, they don't hear anymore. They're not hearing because it's you and your mother and everything about you that's wrong and everything else that's deformed and villain about you and blah, blah, blah. They're no longer listening. So your job is to say, I'm here so you can listen to one another and you guys can work this out. If you let them work it out, then you can slowly back away and you just help them work out their situation. But don't fix it for them because it's not your problem. That make sense? So that's a good third party if you're going to find yourself in that situation. And when you need to be a third party, it's not your problem. Don't fix it. And when you're in a situation, your job is just to say, so I hear you saying this. Is that what you hear? Okay, what are you hearing? And if the person can hear what they're saying, then that's really all they want is to be heard. But they want to be heard as well. Okay? And do you hear what they're saying? You guys hear each other? Sounds like you got some common ground here. What common ground do you have? Well, we both love God. And we both, I don't know, whatever the issue is. You guys are listening to each other. You're doing fine. Now they're back at a communication stage when they're not yelling and it's not ugly and it's not nasty. They're going to work it out. You can back away and sleep well. But if you go to bed thinking about their problem, you've done something wrong. Okay? Yeah.
How do you feel about that process being conducted one-on-one first? Because at my work, because we get trained in very similar style, but like first we pull into an office, whatever, we go through that and we like basically help them to be open first to alternative assumptions or dispel like ill intent and benefit of the doubt, stuff like that with each party before we come together and then we come together. I mean, how do you feel about that? Necessary, unnecessary, or maybe because it's a more professional environment and you definitely want to do your best to keep all of the, higher emotions out of it?
So that's called caucusing, okay? And that's a very common practice in mediation and in law as well. And so you get one party in the room, what do you need, what do you want, get settled down, blah, blah, blah. Go to the other party, what do you need, what do you want, let's get settled around, blah, blah, blah. And then the idea is to come together and to get the same results.
But we've gone through that process though, where then it's like you are third party listening, but then when they hear it again, after you've already kind of done it once, then it like really hits home because then they can see that person as a person instead of the thing.
So you're saying they come together first and then are separate, or they start separately and then come together?
We start separate.
Okay, and then come together.
So that we can have all the stuff, like the feelings, the stuff, what happened, what they did, intentions, what they thought the intentions were, what are the alternative intentions, that kind of stuff. And then you come, after you've done that with both, then you come together and you do that, and they've already been then started to think in their rational mind. Anyway, that's what we do at our workplace.
Sure. I wouldn't expect anything different from a group of engineers, by the way. So let's get all the emotions out of the way. Let's get this thing rationalized here, you know? So I wouldn't expect anything less than a group of engineers. And who, let's just say, it's not the field that's real, like, you know, we don't want to deal with emotions. We got to get work done. So I don't expect a group of engineers to be wanting to deal with emotions. However, emotions are important. Emotions are valuable. They're very successful. So that is one way of doing it. I would suspect that whoever put that in place, again, was probably an engineer or a lawyer that said, let's get the emotions out of the way. Unfortunately, or fortunately, you guys work together, and there is a stick and carrot at work that says, play nicely, you know, or we'll whack you and you'll be gone, you know what I mean? So that is powerful. You don't have such stick and carrot in the church, you know? So you kind of do. You have this whole God thing, but what when my God said this and my God said that, you know? We're both godly. What do you do when that comes up? Like, I love God, I love God, I love God more, I love God more, I love God. So what are you going to do when that happens, you know? Then, so I think, you know, people talking and working out their own issues is a lot better than you working it out for them, is what I'll say. Not saying that's wrong, but emotions are important. Emotions are very valuable. And again, it's a very different story when it's a group of engineers, predominantly guys. There you go. so logical, engineer type guys, certainly they don't want to bring emotion into it, but emotions are valuable. They're beautiful. You need them. And they always come back around. So, yeah. So that's it. But if that ever doesn't work, give me a call. So that's what mediation is, right? And so problem solving, you know, attempted by both parties. Parties are not talking to each other in a healthy way. One of both parties need help in communicating their needs. Relationships are important to both parties. Okay, and then mediation is a great option, okay? But mediation is more effective when parties have a history of cooperation, you know, and something just got a little tweaked, you know what I mean? I can guarantee you can't sit down with a married couple, you know, and just kind of deal with it that way. You've got to get them in the room so they can feel it out. And, you know, you've got to be comfortable with negative emotions. You know, and this is something that I've really gotten comfortable with. When people get in, you know, I did a volunteer for a mediation service in St. Louis, and the service I'm volunteering for, we're actually doing a consent decree, which is a federal mandate, which, you know, which basically says that no one did anything wrong, but it's between the city of Ferguson and their police department. And so I get to sit in and facilitate conversation. I'm not the only one. I'm part of a group of people. We facilitate conversations between Ferguson and his police department. And sometimes they get a little, you know, they get a little worked up, you know. But I'm okay with people getting worked up because it's their community and they're feeling emotional about it. And they're excited. And the cops, they all have to go. Every police officer in Ferguson has to go through these facilitative talks. And so they're down like every other cop in Metro St. Louis area. Instead of 50, they've got 36 cops. So every one of them has to go through this. And the citizens from the community come on, and, you know, and they do a little blaming, a little finger pointing this. And so then we got to sit there and go, so what I hear you saying is this. You have to rephrase that. Because I tell you what, that was a shot across the bow. And, you know what I mean? So, but I hear you saying this, right? Okay, and they go, yeah, that's what we're saying. So it's cool, but then I got to do a facilitation with a couple over a kid. They were doing a parenting plan, and this one parent, this woman, she didn't care if the dad saw the child ever again, you know, and she was angry because of some stuff he put on Facebook. Don't put stuff in print. So he put some stuff on Facebook. She took it the wrong way, and she's not going to let him see his kid ever again. So they're in mediation, and he can't help himself. She gets worked up. She knows how to push his button, and he starts firing back at her. And I'm sitting there going, well, this is actually a pretty good fight. You know what I mean? And so I just have to, can we slow down here a second? Can we, you know, here's what I hear you saying, here's what I hear you saying. 10 minutes later, we're back up here again. So we slow down a second, and then we're up here again. And we slow down a second. So, you know, but in the church, you shouldn't have that. You know what I mean? If you've got that, then you need more help. So these are really, really, really tough situations. It's going to happen. You got to be comfortable with. You got to be comfortable with being a little uncomfortable if you're going to be in the middle of mess. But isn't that what we do anyway in the ministry of reconciliation? Don't you get in this? Don't you get right in the middle of somebody who's studying the Bible and God? You're right in the middle of it, trying to bring them together. Trying to bring them together, and the person's mad at the word, they're mad at the Bible, they're mad at this and mad at that, and you're in the middle going, this is awkward. You know what I mean? This is not about me. It's about you and God. You know what I mean? Don't put yourself in the middle. It's not your problem. You know what I'm saying? It's God. God can work it out. You're just there to make the conversation happen. You know what I mean? And so it's really a good place to be. And so, but things do get stuck. And when they get stuck, don't you be afraid to get help. And don't be afraid to lean in and help others, all right? Do we have another slide here? We don't. I had a video? What video? Oh, fight, flight, or fright. You know. Fight, flight, fight, freeze. Yeah. All right. So this is, we all have this in us, right, when it comes to conflict. We all have this tendency. So this video is kind of a funny little look at this guy dressed up, you've seen these before, dressed up as a snowman, and people respond. This is how people respond when they feel tension or conflict. Go. There's no sound. So I don't know how you respond when you're faced with conflict or when you're faced with tension, but there's a good chance you respond one of those three ways. You either are, whoop, you know what I mean? And I think if that guy was to go back and watch, he'd be surprised, like, whoa, I got a little airtime there, you know? Like, what, like you do things, you're like, well, why am I jumping in the air, right? And the one gal, she told the car, she just kicks the thing, right? I love that it was a female, too. She was like, oh. So then the gal who, I don't know, that seemed painful. She, bam, sat right down. So that, so I don't know how you respond, but when you're under the gun or when you're under pressure or when conflict hits you, but you end up responding in probably one of these three ways. And so you're a fighter, you run away, or you just get paralyzed. And so, but anyway, not only know your triggers, but know your tendencies, and that'll be helpful. So anyway, questions or thoughts as we kind of wrap up this time? We got done a lot sooner than I imagined. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, because I was thinking about like Robin's situation, how she felt like she was being a peace faker with her neighbor in the beginning, because like inside she was very angry, but like outside she didn't express any of that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I have like a sibling who I only see like once a year, so in my mind a lot of times I'm like, keep the peace, because like why get riled up? I only see them once a year, like don't make a big deal. But at the same time, internally I feel like our relationship's dying because I'm just like overly irritated. So I'm like curious, like what's that line in between like I'm being a peace faker versus like how do you like, or like how could like whether it's my situation or like how could she have responded in that moment that would have like changed from being a peace faker to a peacemaker? I'm just curious. Because like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm just being the bigger person. I'll apologize. I'll ask how, you know, like, okay, like could I have done something differently? You're clearly upset that this happened because they're just reactive a lot of things, and it's like things that like I didn't realize they were upset about. So I'm just like kind of like you're like I didn't know you were gonna be upset about that, but you're really reactive and kind of jumping down my throat. And so in my mind I'm like, oh, I'm reacting like a godly person. But I'm like, oh, like listening to this, I'm like maybe I'm peace faking versus peacemaking. And so I was just curious like how to like help that.
I think in my situation, this dad I don't see very often. So the importance of that relationship, it's like, it's not that great. Like, I just want to be friendly with him, and I want him to know that, hey, are we okay? But I think your relationship with your sibling has more value, right? This is your sibling, and that's a situation where it's like, wow, this is substantial. Like, this is a very important relationship. How can I set the stage? How can I get together with my sibling and talk about the things that are going on? You know, like I think planning, writing out, like what we talked about as far as having that conversation would be really important, you know, because this is a very important relationship, so.
Yeah, I would just say that too, that, you know, again, this is a little bit like the person driving by. Though you see her rarely, it is substantial. You don't see her much, but it's still substantial. Like that, you know, I mean, that's massive. And you know, you love God, you know this thing needs to get worked out. So I think you've got to set the time, place, all of that. You got to practice it. You got to do all of that. And you got to figure out what one thing you can't drill down too far. It may be something that goes back to when you were children, but that's not going to help. You know what I'm saying? So that probably ain't going to help. So you got to get a more recent incident, you know, something. But maybe it's not even an incident. They say, I want to be close to you. You know, maybe that's it. I want to really be close to you, and I want to figure out how to do that. What can I do? So that humble posture of, you know, it's tough. I value this relationship. I want to be more committed. What do I need to do? And she may come back, I'm glad you asked. You know what I mean? So take this home with you and change all of that, and we can talk. But hey, at least we're talking. At least we're talking. So.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any other? Yeah. Come on, Lissa.
The part about being a mediator.
Yes.
Is it good to go over the active listening skills, the validating, the reflecting, and the paraphrasing? Is it good to kind of really know those to be able to be helpful as a mediator?
Yes, Miss Joanne. I would say so. I think you want to do so. What's happened when it's a breakdown in communication. When people are in conflict, right? You want to do all the same things you would do if you were yourself. You know, but you got to be careful though. You know what I mean? You want to try. It's hard, right? Because so you got to try to give each person even time. You know what I mean? So I want to validate you. I want to validate you. I want to paraphrase you. Because, you know, when people are funky, sometimes it's like, oh, I won't do this. You're going to take her side. And trust me, I've never met any of these people before in my life, and they feel like I'm on somebody else's side, you know?
Yeah.
So that's just a natural instinct. And they really believe they have to prove something to you. That's the biggest thing. If I'm in the middle, they go, we got to win you over. You're the judge today. We want you to rule. And I'm not ruling anything. Yeah. I'm not ruling anything. I'm just trying to get you to have a conversation. Right. But they want to impress me and tell me how great, tell me their side, and they're running you first to tell you their side of the story. And it's like a little bit like your kids when they kind of go, Johnny did this. Whoever can get the mom first, mom's going to believe their side of the story, right? Yeah. That's what they think. And the reality is that I'm not here to solve it. Okay. Hey, you're going to fix it. I'm not on anybody. It's like I tell the coaches. I'm not on anybody's side. Mm-hmm. Don't care who wins the game. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just want you to talk and make sure there's fairness, good sportsmanship, and safety.
Okay, thank you.
So,
I was just gonna ask, I know that we talked a lot about maybe more like high conflict,
Yeah.
but I was thinking about when things are not being addressed, you know what I mean? Like when there's conflict that's there, that maybe both of those people are withdrawn from, you know? Or maybe it's just one of them is withdrawn. Is there any way that, like, just with what you guys have been taught, that you've like learned how to engage people that are withdrawn?
so two parties,
Or just one?
they have conflict,
One or two.
but
Maybe like one of them's withdrawn, like I don't want to engage this conflict, like I just wanna, you know, like.
how would we know there is a conflict?
That they're avoiding people, they're not, like, you know, they're avoiding that person, or the person feels like, man, they're avoiding me, they're not talking to me. Like, how would you suggest that somebody who maybe is trying to pursue the conflict with somebody who's avoiding it, like, how do they engage the withdrawer?
So I think, so Melissa comes to me and says, I just feel like Robin's avoiding me. Oh, well, tell me more about that, right? You've got to engage Melissa. Okay, so have you talked to Robin about that? Oh, she's avoiding me. Okay. Have you tried to talk to her? Because Melissa's probably making some assumptions, right? Okay, that Robin's avoiding her. So how do we figure that out? How will we figure that out, Melissa? Right? So, well, do you feel comfortable talking to her? Do you feel comfortable talking to Robin, Melissa? Okay, great. So how would you try to talk to her? If you were going to talk to her, how would that go? What would that look like? What would you do?
Well, I think there's two different ways you can approach it.
Okay.
There's the, hey, you're avoiding me.
Okay. Okay.
Or there's the, maybe more of like, hey, like I just noticed that maybe you seem more withdrawn.
Okay.
Like inviting them to share.
Okay. I like that. Okay, so which one do you think is going to go best, Melissa?
She knows.
Okay. You want to practice with me? All right. So we can practice that, and Melissa can try it. We're not actually going to practice it, but we can practice that, and Melissa can try that. Because Robin may not be avoiding her. Robin might be avoiding her, but Robin may go, oh, I was just waiting for you to come. I was so scared to talk to you. I'm so intimidated by you. You're the women's ministry leader. I'm afraid to be in your space. Oh, so she's avoiding because she's afraid. Or I get this sometime. I don't want to talk to you, because you remind me of my dad. Like, but you're white. So I'm every father figure imaginable. Doesn't matter what color it is. I'm just a father figure. So like I don't know what to do about that. You know what I mean? I don't know what to do. But so they're afraid to talk to me because they're assuming that I'm a certain way. So while I'm not avoiding you, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's not even on my radar. I don't know what to do with that. Does that make sense? So those kind of things can kind of happen. Those are the kind of things that are going on. But if you go out and just have that conversation and dig in, she's probably going to run back and go, Robin wasn't avoiding me. She loves me. She was praying for me. She actually got a gift, and you don't know what's happening. Yeah. So there could be a lot of assumptions. Yeah. So, I would just say that. When that person says
I was thinking what Chris said earlier, sometimes our insecurity is too
Yeah. Linda wanted to say something, yeah.
I wanted to, you've done such a wonderful job. I need to see the pastor.
Oh, do you want to give me a hug?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I think she's saying this is over. Time for you guys to go home. Thank you so much. So are there any other questions or comments or thoughts before we wrap up? We got 7 minutes. Yes, Hazel.
I was going to say, I'm a human development, my emphasis is family sciences, and it's interesting because I think you know, listening to this and listening about, I'm realizing that my major talks nothing about resolving conflict. It's all about bad dynamics and good dynamics. And there's good dynamics in families, and then there's bad dynamics in families. And this is how you recognize bad dynamics, and this is how you recognize a good dynamic. And, you know, the end, okay, like exam. And so I'm realizing that, you know, there's really no, like, even in our world, like, there's no, like, I shouldn't say in our world, at least what I'm learning, there's no, like, really way to deal with conflict. Like, in my class, you would think that with families, it's like, but I've never, I'm thinking, I'm like, I've never had a lecture on how to resolve conflict in a bad family dynamic. So I think this was really helpful.
So only within, believe it or not, only, you'll find this shocking, what profession do you think ends up in the middle of more conflict? You have to take a guess. Attorneys, but teachers do too. So I went through education school. We didn't learn anything on conflict management. And only within the last 10 years, have law schools begun to do anything on conflict management. So these people are in the middle of more conflict than anybody. You know what I mean? And there's only recently that they've begun to get training on how to manage conflict within, I'm just going, I mean, seriously, like in America, you got a problem, who you call? Call a lawyer. and the lawyers go, I will fight for you. You know, is that what I really want? Yep, that's what I want. You know what I mean? I really want him fighting for me and really want him to shame the other person into giving me money and shame the other parent into making me get the kids and all of that stuff, because that's really going to make for healthy children. You know what I mean? When you go in open court and you just, you know, just completely obliterate the other parent. Yeah. So it doesn't make for healthy children at all. So the law profession, in fact, in my program, so I finished up a mediation course in Tennessee. In my class was a bunch of lawyers, a federal judge, a couple of judges, one was a federal judge, all of them trying to learn mediation. And they all admitted the same thing, like, yeah, we didn't get anything like this in law school. We were taught to win, to get to the truth and to win. You know what I mean? The law will solve every problem. And the law is fraught with conflict. It is, you know what I mean? So I think, you know, but even in education, KP, we're right in the middle of so much stuff. And I think we're not getting very much into educators. At least not when I went to school. Maybe you got something, KB, but there's not really much training on how to resolve issues. And so now schools are trying to do a lot of work to bring in people to do some kind of side work, but I think the teachers are the one that right front line of this kid, and the way you resolve conflict, go to the office. You know what I mean? Go to the office. You go to the office, and then they send you home or call your parents or do something else, and it doesn't resolve. So I think none of that is helpful either, right? So I think, but here's the deal. I don't expect the world to do the kingdom of God should be doing. It's our job. We're the peacemakers. And we're the ones that are supposed to be doing that. And so we get an opportunity to take this and help the world. So,
which is really exciting. You know, because our goal is peace. I think in those other those other places, it may be getting to the truth, or it may be controlling your students. Like, that's the goal. Like, I want to control everybody so I can teach, or I want to get to the truth so that I can win. But in God's kingdom, it really is for us to have peace. And I think we are best able to put these things into practice because that's our goal. You know, it's not to control. It's not to, you know, we don't have these ulterior motives. So I'm really excited. Like, I feel like these things have helped us personally, like in our marriage. There's more conflict, but we manage it better, which is awesome. It's helped us with our girls. It's helped us in our ministry, but we have to practice it. So I really appreciate you guys letting us come and share and teach. And don't feel like you gotta remember everything and put everything into practice, but hopefully something struck a chord in your heart that you can start implementing. So,
Janice, what do we need to do here? Pray?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I'm done talking. So, you want to pray for it? Nate Schrader, come on up and pray. Well, you don't have to come up and pray. You can just pray, whatever. Here you go. Oh, by the way, this is Nate Schrader. This is my daughter's boyfriend.
There's no conflict.
Pray good, bro. Pray good. Don't mess up. I'll share more about that tomorrow, but go ahead.
Yeah. God, I just want to thank you for today. Thank you for just Vincent and Robin just coming over here to Columbia and just sharing with us what they've learned about just conflict and conflict resolution. And I just pray that this is something that we can really take to heart, that this is something that we can really practice, and that we can really just see a lot of fruit come from this, and that we can really just use this and when we're showing other people what it looks like to follow you, and just in church or wherever we are, that we can use this just to be ministers of reconciliation and ministers of peace. So thank you for Vincent and Robin just doing this today, and just thank you for really just leading all of us, and really just showing all of us what this is like in classes like this, but also just in the Bible. So thank you for loving us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Woo.